Good morning. Welcome to the second day of the Writers Cafe. We'll just have a little brief review of what we studied yesterday. You did responses to art history. You saw a number of paintings, original paintings, slides of paintings, a little bit of coverage from just the very beginning of art history all the way to the present. What did you think about it? Write those little responses down for a minute. We'll have a brief Arthur's Chair and then we'll continue. The first thing that we're going to take a look at today is the idea of sequential creations of text. Text signals emphasize important content. They emphasize clarity, text organization. The purpose of an expository is to inform, and you're going to create an informative text today. You're going to see some pottery demonstrations by Mr. Robert Holloman, a potter from Ebenezer, Mississippi, who is very prominent in the world of Southern pottery and nationally as well. He does slab pottery. He creates beautiful pots on a wheel. I'll let you see more about it as we go along, but take it from me, he's an expert in the field and we're so fortunate to have him today. He will continue to be your mentor throughout the project. What I want you to do is get out your pencil and paper. We're going to take copious notes as we enjoy the sequential process of his creation of pottery today. Before we begin to do that, I'm going to show you some photographs of world famous pots and tell you about the potters that did them. As far as your sequential text goes, you will take very good notes, but I want to give you a little idea about what we'll be looking for the final product at the end of the day. You will have signaling devices to demarcate underlying structure. There will be an organization. One process follows the other. You will label parts of your text and identify their functions and emphasize different parts of the text. That will be up to you the way you do it. But once we take our notes, and this is just going to be a rough draft, very similar to what we did yesterday as far as brainstorming goes, just to get your ideas out there, write down every single thing that you think you might need to use, every single word, every sensory detail, vivid detail, descriptive detail that comes into your mind. Just write it down and I will help you organize your notes at the second hour after we finish with our pottery demonstrations and views of famous potters and hearing about their lives. So just take those notes. We will get in groups and we will get in pairs, and Ms. Cleveland will come around and we'll talk about the organization as we go along. Just keep in mind it's a sequential text assignment. That sequential just means what? That's right, one thing follows after another, but you want to make clear to your reader as you go along that things are clear to him in terms of one thing following another. The second ceramist is a bit more of a traditional ceramist, but he, his wife, and Peter Volkos were contemporary, which means they were practicing around the same time, and they both had quite long lives, although Otto Nassler lived to be 99, so he actually outlived Volkos. He was a bit more of a traditional potter. I had the pleasure to meet him out in California and outside of Los Angeles. He was interested in finding a electric kiln that could high fire to very high temperatures as only a gas kiln could fire to heretofore. I was with a friend of mine who was an inventor, so we were invited to his house for lunch, and the inventor thought that he had come up with a special firing technique, a special part of the kiln so that Mr. Nassler could continue forward with his experiments. So it was a very exciting day for him. He worked with his wife, Gertrude, for many years. He's considered the grandfather of modern ceramics, and and I know that she's the grandmother, she was the person that would actually make the pots most of the time, and he was the person that would do the glazes. They are famous. I saw on PBS the other day one of their pots had shown up, and a very surprised owner of one of the pots actually realized that his pot was worth between $40,000 and $60,000. It was a small pot. It was beautiful, but anyone that has ever tried to make a pot on a wheel and fire it at a very high temperature understands the really very beautiful and utilitarian aspect of Otto and Natzler and Gertrude Natzler's pottery. They were 25 when they met. They worked together until Mrs. Natzler died, leaving about 200 objects at that time for him to finish. When I went to see him in his studio, he had turned to slab making pottery, and the whole studio was filled with slab pots. It was exquisite. It was exciting for me, who, when I took ceramics, was unable to throw the pots myself on the wheel because I suppose lack of strength and probably coordination. But a friend of mine showed me how you could make beautiful, nice big slab pots. You will see how to do that today. And even if you're small and not strong like me, you can make some wonderful, wonderful, nice, big, beautiful, or small, or any kind of pots that you like. I would like to introduce Mr. Robert Holloman from Ebenezer, Mississippi. He has a beautiful place in the country, a very interesting house in progress and studio. The studio probably is much more finished than his house is finished because that's where he spends a lot of time. He also gardens and has a wonderful fig tree. So this is Mr. Holloman. He's going to show you some pottery making and slab making and pot throwing techniques, and then we're going to come back together. We have some clay for you here, and we're going to make your own clay pots, and he has kindly said that he will fire them for you in his own kiln. So hopefully after we get them back, we can even glaze them and return them for the second firing, and you'll end up with a beautiful pot to take home at the end of the summer gifted program this summer. He will show some of his pottery online. He is on Facebook.com. I'm going to give you a handout of all the places you can see on YouTube. You can see him throwing pottery, so you'll have a chance to remember that. He will tell you a little bit about the construction of a kiln and the chemistry of glaze making. So look forward to a fascinating adventure in the world of art and pottery. Some of the questions that I want you to think about answering at the end of the hour, there are cognitive thought questions. They're questions that you carefully think about and use every bit of your creativity and excitement about learning to come up with an answer. Some of the themes that are emerging when you compare art, literature, and music and history of your era, and you can hear the music playing in the background, how do they relate to you and the citizens of this era? So we're going to go across domains, think about even the art that you saw yesterday, the literature that you're producing yourself, the music, and you're going to be also doing a little research about pottery yourself and the research that we're showing you today. So how do they all correlate? How do they relate to you? And how do they relate to the other citizens of the present era? Thank you.